Samuel. And because we are terrified. You know, my friend Micah that's not here that plays whistles with us, he's in a punk band also, and it's really fun to watch him in his punk band because he plays the bass in a punk band. So you get him, he's got these CDs, and it's like, puts you totally to sleep, and then he's in this punk band where he just jumps around the stage. It's like totally two different people. And so he's the coolest guy. He says, he lives in Minneapolis, he says all the time, he says, you know, our generation is, he's saying this sarcastically, thinks that they're independent. And I always say, they can't even dress themselves. But we think we're independent. And he says it better. He says, we can't even, we're so bound, we have to have somebody tell us what we like. And let it not be for the church that we are so, we pretend like we're not afraid, but we're terrified. We act like we're independent, but we're so dependent we can't even dress ourselves. We have to have somebody tell us what we like. Tell me what kind of music I should like. You know what I mean? Well, if you're in the church, you should only listen to songs that say at least holy in them once. And you know, it's like that. Anybody ever watch? I'm not supporting this. I think maybe they're a little messed up, but I mean, but we're all a little messed up. You know what I mean? But the vintage21.com. Has anybody seen vintage21.com? Have you ever seen that? You need to get on vintage21.com. Google it and watch the video. It's hilarious. You know, like. It's Jesus, and he's got this little voice like this. You've seen it, haven't you, brother? And he's like, the first one that I ever saw, Jesus. Have you seen it, John? You need to see it. It's hilarious. I mean, these guys are obviously a little, like, miffed at the church, to say the least. But anyway, but it's funny. It's all get out. My pastor showed it to me for the first time. It was awesome. And it's Jesus, and he like, you gotta see it, but he like walks, you know, he's like walks up to all the disciples, the first one I saw, and he's like, well, let's see here. And he just talks in this really high voice like this, you know, he's like, and you drank a little wine last night. Not too much, just enough to make me angry. And you swore when you stubbed your toe. And Thomas, you laughed at him when he stubbed his toe. And you over here, well, I forgot your name, so you're off the hook. And you don't have your What Would Jesus Do bracelet on. It's hilarious. And you flipped somebody off when you were riding your camel and another camel rider came and cut in front of you. This is Jesus. And Frank, then he gets to Frank. All the others' names are like Josiah, Humba, Shia, you know what I mean? And then he's like, and Frank, you know and I know what you did. I just can't repeat it because I'm Jesus. And then he says, come along with me, follow me, it's time to pay the piper. Oh, this one guy is like, and I saw you behind the church the other night smoking a cigarette. So as they're walking behind him, follow me, it's time to pay the piper, he says. It's so annoying the way he says stuff. And he's like, time to pay the piper. And they're all following behind him. All of his disciples are just following him behind him like this. And then you hear one of them, oh man, it was just one cigarette. And then you hear Jesus and he goes, I heard that. And then he leads them all up on this mountain. And there's a big old bunch of people sitting out there. And he says, he goes, Ah, look at all these sinners. And he says, I healed the sick. I raised the dead people. No, listen up, he says. Listen up. I'm Jesus. I healed the sick. I raised the dead. And I did it all to tell you this. You're all sinners. There is no hope. Thank you. No, one of my favorites is the first. This is welcome, hello, welcome to the. And Jesus is up in the church. Hello, welcome to the first Christian church service. It's Jesus. You know. He says, in one of them, he says, you know, if you're gonna be a part of the church, you gotta wear a fashionable beard, like me. He says if you're gonna be a part of the church, then you gotta You gotta wear a T-shirt with my picture on it or something like that. And he says, if you're gonna be a part of the church, just recognize that you can only laugh if you're laughing at how stupid the devil is. That's what he says. My favorite one, though, my favorite of all of them, is they're all playing hide and seek, the disciples. So they show them, and they're all done to the old vintage Jesus, films, So my favorite is all the disciples are lost in a desert. And they're all lost. And they're like, oh, I love the trees. And they're like walking around. It's like, what's funny through the whole thing is the people that are doing the voiceovers, you can hear that there's a dog barking. Like in the garage of these. It's like, the whole time there's like this, woof, 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 woof. And they're like talking, Jesus, it's hilarious. So here they are, they're like, these guys are like, they're all looking around and they can't find Jesus. And they finally find Jesus, and Jesus is sitting on a chair out in the middle of nowhere. And they all come running up to Jesus, and they're like, hey, Jesus, we thought you were going to play hide and seek with us. He says, I know. I told you I was going to play hide and seek with you so that you'd get lost, and you wouldn't be around me, and you'd be looking all over, and you'd never find me. I was laughing so hard. They're all like, oh, Jesus, we thought you were our friend. Jesus says, I am your friend. I just don't have time for you. That's the end. That's so hot. I am your friend, Peter. I just don't have time for you. Oh, gosh, it's so funny. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, so I'm driving Samuel and Zane to school. I want you to hear this. Such a great story. I'm driving Samuel and Zane to school. And I'm listening. Has anybody ever heard of Andrea Bocelli? I love that guy. And he's singing in my car to me. It's the way I always see it, you know what I mean? When you put on their CDs, that they're singing just for you, So I'm listening to him, and Samuel and Zane are in the back seat, strapped in. And Zane's 4 and Samuel's 5 at the time. And it's about 40 degrees out. We're driving up Lake Michigan, and I'm taking the boys to school. I'm listening to Andrea Bocelli, and all of a sudden I hear from the back seat, Zane, and he's yelling at me. He says, get the song Beautiful People ready if you can for the words, so they can see the words, Beautiful People. So Zane's yelling at me. He said, Uncle Jason. I said, what? He said, I can't hear the music. So I turned up the radio. And he's still yelling at me. Uncle Jason. I said, what? He said, I can't hear the music.